while we were sitting up on the curb.
This is KMKS FM 92.1. Matagorda County Judge Bert O'Connell received notice of a side area emergency.
We started crying because we was thinking of the other people's lives that we saw float down the river.
The bombing is rumored to be the work of an international terrorist organization. More details will follow.
The whole truck and the whole freeway were on my legs. I was just starting to give up.
It is official and it is very real, and we are now under a hurricane warning.
Behind what used to be the shopping center is the Westbury and Waterford Street.
In fact, more than a dozen countries are believed to be working on nuclear weapons programs.
Disasters. Most of us don't think much about them until we're in the middle of one. But some people do. The emergency managers who plan and prepare for them. The police, fire, and rescue workers who are first on the scene to respond. The volunteers who give their time to assist those in need. They're the people who help others survive when disaster strikes. The people in emergency services and civil defense.
In today's complex world, civil defense serves a vitally important role of preparing for and managing the response to a wide range of disasters, including natural disasters such as floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, all the way up to and including the potentially devastating disaster of an attack on this country by a foreign power.
Civil defense programs exist at every level of government and in the private sector as well. They have different names in different places.
Well, the programs have different names, they have different forms, they sometimes perform different functions, but they have a single basic goal, and that's the protection of people and property from any disaster, should one occur.
The most familiar component of civil defense protection is the coordinated response that takes place during and after a disaster. In any disaster, local responders are the first on the scene, as they were on the night tornadoes struck Huntsville, Alabama.
Well, we didn't even know a tornado was coming, and it lasted maybe 30 seconds, and then we were just buried under doors and dirt.
Can you wiggle anything?
No.
Okay. We're coming after you. Don't worry.
Huntsville fire, police, and rescue workers labored throughout the night, coordinated from a local emergency operations center, or EOC. With the dawn, neighbors and other volunteers joined in, and the process of rebuilding began.
You always carry coffee in the neighborhood?
Frequently. Every Saturday after a tornado hits.
Okay. You're the goodwill ambassador here in Jonesville.
Well, we didn't get any damage to speak of. We're just going down to our neighbor's house. They don't have electricity yet, just taking some coffee.
So you got your tools with you?
Yep.
Yeah? And you're just looking for places to help? Yeah? Great idea.
There have been volunteers in this yard almost nonstop since this start Thursday morning.
Kind of restores the old faith, doesn't it?
It does. Wonderful.
Local efforts are the front line of response. But when disaster threatens a widespread area, local efforts alone can never be enough. The Carolinas, September, beach season, hurricane season. As Hurricane Hugo winds its way up the East Coast, state emergency operations centers prepare to deal with one of the worst storms of the century. In North Carolina, personnel from 17 state agencies come together well before landfall, ready to work around the clock for a week or more.
This is the central place, or nerve center, where all the state forces co-locate in times of a national emergency or an emergency that involves any just natural or technological or man-made hazards that affect North Carolinians. This center is a decision-making facility. It is equipped for the worst-case scenario. It is funded by Federal Emergency Management Agency funds, and we have our own fuel supply. We have our own backup power.
State EOC, go ahead.
This is KSB 360, Area C Office Wallace.
It is a central site to disseminate information to the public, and also a central site where local government can call in to request resources.
Although local and state governments take the lead in disaster response, the federal government has a crucial supporting role. If the devastation is great enough, the governor will ask the president to declare a major disaster or an emergency and to provide federal assistance.
Anyone who received any damages in the storm is encouraged to come by and fill out an application. Government financial assistance is available for any uninsured losses.
Federal disaster assistance offices were opened after both the Huntsville tornado and Hurricane Hugo, administered by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA.
FEMA does not work like a 911 number. We are not now and never will be a substitute for the local police, fire, public works, emergency medical service personnel. In a major disaster, however, we do step in and administer financial programs that are necessary to help individuals and communities get back on their feet. And on an ongoing basis, we provide financial assistance to state and local governments so they will be better able to manage their response to a disaster.
Another federal role is preparedness. In particular, preparedness for national security emergencies. At Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, computer tracking systems keep a constant watch on the skies, and communication systems are in place to provide emergency information in the unlikely but not impossible event of an attack on the United States. And all across the country, states and many localities have been provided systems and equipment to track and monitor the most widespread danger to the population: radiation. Working with local jurisdictions, state and federal officials periodically test these radiological monitoring systems. In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the computer screens at the state EOC have been reconfigured to simulate a post-nuclear attack environment.
This information will be entered into our computer and be used for the management of decisions, providing guidance to the people as to when they can leave their shelters, also when traffic can resume to normal.
Cumberland County Headquarters from Station 6 monitoring at 12 o'clock noon, reporting 9.5 Rankins per hour.
In addition to helping fund more than 7,000 emergency management positions around the country, FEMA also provides extensive training.
Go ahead and do 12.
Here at the Emergency Management Institute in Emmitsburg, Maryland, FEMA offers courses in such subjects as shelter management and family protection, more than 100 courses in all. But civil defense professionals aren't the only people FEMA trains. Today, federal trainers are working with a group of local officials and community volunteers. Police and fire personnel, phone dispatchers, public works personnel, emergency medical staff, even a mayor and city manager are learning how to coordinate their response to an emergency.
What I'm saying to you is I've got the evacuation site set up. I've got the cars.
It's a simulation, but it soon takes on a life of its own as the participants respond to over 100 separate incidents.
Okay, we just sent in 49. Okay, Phil, 50.
What we find is that if we do our job right, then the people that are in these rooms hear what they would hear in a real incident, which is emotional response from people excited. Our job is to make what they hear, what they are dealing with, as real as possible.
Steve?
Plan recommendation.
The key lesson of any training program in civil defense is the importance of coordination. 10 a.m. on a May morning, a nuclear power plant simulates a serious problem, and a real-life demonstration of coordinated planning and decision-making begins.
I'd like to see a plant diagram. I want to see what's under that area.
Okay.
Within an hour, the State Emergency Operations Center in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania is up and running to track events at the plant, coordinate the efforts of local and county emergency program managers, and communicate with other states and the public if needed. This is an exercise involving hundreds of people in a multi-state area, with federal evaluators on hand to record and report on everything that happens. 12 p.m. Conditions at the plant have deteriorated further.
Well, there's a couple of critical issues that are coming up in here, and they kind of go like this. If they're shutting that plant down, where is that water going?
Yes.
And number two, what are they doing to make up that water in the cooling system?
Reactor stripped and shut down, in other words. It was automatic, no power to the primary coolant pumps, which means they got no circulating water.
1:30 p.m. A site area emergency is declared. Non-critical power plant personnel will be evacuated. There is no danger to the public at this time. Still, EOC staff put personnel around the state on alert.
Hey, give me the state police.
Yes, they are, if not in shutdown, they are very close to shutdown.
Here, as throughout the exercise, any new information appears instantly on screens throughout the EOC so that decisions can be made and activities coordinated. 4 p.m. The plant declares a general emergency. The public's safety is now an issue.
The plant is conducting an evacuation of unnecessary plant personnel at this time. Thank you.
We need to have a conference call with Ohio and West Virginia. Given the conditions of the plant, we need to consider some emergency public information.
6 p.m. The key moment. The governor makes a decision to evacuate. If this were a real emergency, the emergency broadcast system would be activated in several counties to alert the public. But today, the activation stops with a test.
This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. The broadcasters of your area, in voluntary cooperation with federal, state, and local authorities, have developed this system to keep you informed in the event of an emergency. If this had been
In an actual disaster, protection is more than a government responsibility. It's up to us, as individuals, families, and neighbors, to know what we need to do to protect ourselves. In Corvallis, Oregon, in a church meeting room, an unusual meeting of city and county agencies involved in emergency management is taking place. Unusual because the officials are being brought together by a Corvallis homemaker, Diane Merton.
As a mom, as a wife, as a homemaker in this community, what is it that I need to know? What is it that I need to have? And so I look at you and all of your ideas and all of your programs and I say, help.
During the course of the 2-hour meeting, the participants share information and ideas about emergency preparedness and come to two conclusions. The first, local families need more information on how to prepare for disaster and survive on their own.
But the real principal focus that I'm picking up on is the fact that the public needs to know what is there for them, and they also need to know the fact that there is a certain amount of self-help that needs to occur.
Call this group back together again in another month or 2 months and say,
the second conclusion, it will take the active involvement of concerned citizens like Diane Merton to get a community awareness program up and running. The group decides to create a community-wide task force on citizen preparedness, and they agree to meet again in a month.
The next item we're going to get is our first aid kit.
The meeting has some immediate consequences as well. Back at home, one of the attendees, Richard Tucker, decides to make sure his own family is equipped to survive a disaster.
And Randy, you can use this. Julie, you can use the Buddy Burner. Let's go ahead and put your food in. Make sure you can get it all in there. It's 72 hours worth, so you should be able
Each member of the Tucker family now has the supplies they'll need to survive on their own for 72 hours, stored away and ready for use.
Now I've got the radio. That way we can listen to any forecast, the weather.
Individual and family preparedness is like an insurance policy. It's survival insurance for the individual and for that individual's family. And in this less than perfect world, we would be foolish not to subscribe to that type of insurance.
People in the San Francisco Bay Area are also taking disaster planning more seriously these days. The reason? This 15-second reminder. During the earthquake and the days and weeks that followed, the people of the Bay Area learned firsthand that when disaster strikes, emergency response is everybody's job. Police and other emergency personnel rushed to the areas of greatest need, but the majority of San Franciscans would have to get by on their own.
Go home! Secure your residence! Shut off the electricity! Shut off the gas! Store whatever water you can in your bathtub. Prepare for 2 to 3 days without emergency services.
As evening approached, the region fell into darkness.
Okay, looks like we got...
But using emergency generators for power, a number of emergency operations centers were already in action. While federal, state, and local EOCs were coordinating the government's response, other EOCs were directing the parallel efforts of Pacific Bell and Pacific Gas and Electric employees to get phones, gas, and electricity back online.
There's a subsurface switch between here and Jack London Square. That's a loop that goes back.
In the famous earthquake of 1906, large sections of San Francisco were destroyed by fire, fueled by ruptured gas lines. But this time, the community was better prepared.
Okay, in your phone book, on B12, the B section, but on B12 it tells you how to turn off your gas valve.
The people of Northern California learned a lot from the Loma Prieta earthquake. They learned how much they could accomplish by working together. They learned some things they needed to do differently. And they learned how much emergency preparedness can mean when disaster strikes.
It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. It was the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. I was scared to death. And, you know, people don't think about these things. They don't think about the fact that you have to be ready for them, but you really do, because you never know when it's going to happen. It's not a question of whether it's going to happen or not. It's when.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency has a number of booklets available on what people can do to prepare for disaster. Here's something you can do right now. Write the Federal Emergency Management Agency for a free 72-hour emergency preparedness checklist and a list of other federal publications. Write to FEMA, Office of Civil Defense, Post Office Box 70274, Washington, D.C., 20024. Do it today, before disaster strikes.